What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another tropical forecast here by Agent Weather Forecast. And in this video, we're going to be going to the specifics here, and we're watching whether Bill can form within the next 10 days in the Western Atlantic here. So really watching out. Malls have been consistent for over a week now, actually over 10 days for some point of having a tropical system develop within either the Gulf of Mexico or Western Caribbean here, and maybe even outside in the Western Atlantic in general here. So we're going to be looking at a specific time frame in a specific region here. Unlike my other tropical forecasts, they've been kind of outlooked and scattered out and very broad. This will be a very specific upload here. So if you guys want to know about whether Bill can form in the Gulf of Mexico or Western Caribbean and maybe even head towards the United States, that's exactly what I'll be going throughout the video. But before we get in the video, be sure to smash that like button and as well as smash the subscribe button, guys. I would greatly appreciate it, as I know you guys support my tropical forecast. And as well, if you want to get notified as soon as I do another tropical forecast, whether it's in July, August, or etc., I recommend smashing that bell icon. Of course, I know this is still very far out, anywhere from now to 10 days. But since models have been very consistent, I decided to post on it. But with that further ado, let's get into the forecast. So let's jump straight into the GFS here, MSLP 3-hour. And obviously, we're not looking at for anything really within the next few days here. So we can kind of skip around there. We got that big Bermuda high kind of bringing in a ton of dry air and very, very sunny conditions there across much of the north central and much of the central Atlantic in general. GFS does have a low pressure there, but it does seem like it's not going to form there. But it does have a low pressure by June 10th, kind of just outside of the northeastern Caribbean. It does have a low pressure there, and it does have some type of vorticity. However, that's a very, very weak low pressure and would not last really that long, as that Bermuda high is going to bring in some really dry conditions across the general region here. So we're not watching out for anything within, I at least say, for the beginning of the week here, or this week in general. But as we go later now into next week here, that's when things will become a bit more interesting here. So we actually do have a low pressure developing here. This one's going to be very interesting here, as GFS and Canadian model, I do believe, have this low pressure at the very same location. So by Saturday the 12th here, so this is the very, very end of this week here, we do have a low pressure developing here off the mid-Atlantic coast at 1,004 millibars. So that is definitely something to keep a very, very close eye on. Although GFS has not been very consistent with this specific region, it is popping up right now, and it's definitely something to keep a close eye on, because this Gulf Stream is already bringing in some pretty favorable conditions. And believe it or not, 6 days out, 6 days additionally, we will see a lot better conditions compared to now. So still something to keep a very close eye on June 12th here, as we now go later on into now almost June 13th here. Still that low pressure at 1,002 millibars. The question is, are these waters too cold to have anything form up there this early in the season here? That could very well be the case, which is why I don't think we will see Bill this week here. But next week is definitely going to be interesting here. Starting off right off in the bat, Sunday and Mondays is when we're going to be really watching out for either the Gulf of Mexico or the Western Caribbean. These are the main areas to watch out for development of Bill. Obviously, there is maybe a reason to watch out for up here, but the thing is, it just doesn't seem like conditions are going to be that great compared to the conditions down here. So we may have something trying to form up here this weekend. The thing is, I just don't think the waters are going to be able to sustain this. Obviously, Anna did have some really cold waters, and it was subtropical, so maybe we can watch out for this weekend, as early this weekend. So the time frame to watch out for development is when the next 6 to 10 days is where we really be watching out here. 8 days out now to the 14th. We were going to really watch out whether we can see some low pressure develop here across the Western Caribbean. Ever since, I believe, like May 29th, GFS has had a low pressure develop between the 14th and 15th over here and going towards Florida, but they no longer show that. So we will have to keep a close eye on still the Western Caribbean, because that's where we kind of have our most favorable conditions. But as we now go later into June 16th here, so 10 days out, watching out for a 1,006 millibar low pressure coming off the Bay of Campeche and Yucatan Peninsula and going into the Gulf of Mexico here up to 1,005 millibars. And the thing is, GFS and Canadian model both show this coming off Yucatan and going to the Gulf of Mexico. So the fact that two big global models are showing this is very, very intriguing. Obviously, we can't really get a good look at the European because the European only goes around 90 hours out when it comes to tropics. But still, I believe once we get a lot closer, I think European will as well be jumping on this. And another low pressure up here to really watch out for, maybe 1,005 millibars way up here. This would definitely be something to keep a close eye on if it was maybe September or August. But since the waters are so really, really cold up there, I doubt we'll be seeing any low pressures that become subtropical or tropical in general. So my main area to watch out for Bill is going to be the Western Atlantic, whether it's the Caribbean or whether it's the Gulf of Mexico. And I think we can all agree on that. But there may definitely be something to keep a close eye on this weekend here for this system. Obviously, it does not look too great condition wise. Talking about SSTs, but again, the SSTs will be greatly warmer compared to now to the next week or so. Let's not go ahead and look at the CMC here, or the Canadian. The Canadian. So as you do see, nothing really particularly standing out here for this week. Like I said, I mean, they still do have, let's go now to June 12th, I believe was the day. See, by June 12th, they have a low pressure coming off the mid-Atlantic coast, which is exactly what the GFS is showing. So Canadian and GFS once again agreeing here on a low pressure coming off the mid-Atlantic coast and starting off at a really pretty decent number there, 1,004 millibars. And actually, this is actually not in too crazy cold conditions right now. I mean, if it was maybe out here, maybe it's a completely different story, but this is not too far out because the Gulf Stream is already bringing out some really warm waters all the way up, really to the point where this low pressure where it is located right now. So I do think we can really watch out for this. I mean, I'm not 100% sure whether this will become something to keep a close eye on, but I definitely think since both Canadian and GFS are showing the exact location, timing, and millibar strength, it's definitely something they really kind of look forward to when it comes to every new GFS run and Canadian model run. I think we have to really watch out for the 12th to see whether they are continuing to be very consistent on that. I mean, since it's not just like one model showing it, it's definitely something to keep a really close eye on, because then it goes to 1,002 millibars, and this is actually not far where Anna was. Anna was basically over here, and this is actually in a lot warmer waters. So I think we can definitely keep something out. I mean, I would not be shocked if Bill were to form up here instead of the Western Caribbean. But like I did say, it just depends on the conditions. I mean, obviously conditions are way better down there in the Western Caribbean and Atlantic, but we still cannot rule it out of the possibility here since it's more than one model showing it. And then let's go ahead and now watch now the CMC, this low pressure, the low pressure, actually they have it forming the Bay of Campeche instead of coming off Cancun and Yucatan Peninsula. But there they have the low pressure sitting there, very similar to Cristobal. Cristobal obviously was sitting right off the Bay of Campeche once it came from the Eastern Pacific, but Cristobal was kind of sitting out there, and it kind of looped around and then went straight up here to the Louisiana area. But this is obviously a very similar area, very similar time frame. I believe Cristobal actually did form around early to mid-June here. I don't know the exact date, but very similar. That Bay of Campeche does seem to be an area to watch out for when it comes to June. So 1,002 millibars by June 15th. So the CMC does have this forming earlier than the GFS. GFS has it forming around June 16th, but they have it forming in a more different region, different time frame, June 15th, and that could be because conditions are a bit better near the Bay of Campeche waters, or maybe a little bit favorable conditions, because there still will be some shear over here. So if it were to form in the Bay of Campeche like the CMC has it, I think it would definitely have a better shot to become a system. So 1,002 millibars by June 15th, so an early start compared to GFS. And then it goes to 997 millibars by June 16th. So already at 3 digits, and it's not even going through mid of the Gulf of Mexico. So I do think this will be very, very interesting. It's something to keep a very close eye on, because 997 millibars in very warm waters, and based on that track, it's most likely going to go its way towards the east here if it continues to strengthen at a fast rate. So I think landfall-wise for Bill, if it does not form, and Bill does not form up here, I think if Bill were to happen down here in the Western Caribbean and Western Atlantic, including Gulf of Mexico, I think we really have to watch out for the Eastern Gulf of Mexico when it comes to maybe the Florida Panhandle, the western coast of Florida, and maybe Alabama. So keeping a very close eye on that. Let's not go ahead and look at the icon model here on the Tropical Tidbits website. So let's go ahead and see what they have here. So by June 12th, they also have this low pressure. So 3 models have have a low pressure developing off the eastern coast of the United States. So June 12th is definitely something to keep a close eye on. That's actually not that far out. 6 days. I mean, I think we're really all watching out for the Western Atlantic for Bill because they've been very consistent for that region for the past few days and weeks. But, I mean, CMC, Icon, and GFS are all 3 showing a low pressure forming off the mid-Atlantic and going just north of Bermuda. CMC has it, or Icon has it a little bit weaker at only 1,005 millibars, but I believe CMC had it at 1,002 and GFS had it at 1,004. So really watching out for it. Still, I'm really keeping a close eye on Saturday. I still don't know 100% whether I think this could be something to keep a close eye on, talking about bill-wise, but I definitely think there's a chance it's going to become an invest if it becomes more consistent. Obviously, that's still 6 days out, so it can still change a lot, specifically since it has not been really consistent with that. But, I mean, it's definitely something to keep a close eye on. So we're not, obviously 10 days seems very far out for those watching this video, I mean, we even have a chance for a bill or something tropical within the next 6 days. So keep a very close eye on it because although it sounds really far out, and it kind of is, they have been very consistent model-wise with that Western Caribbean Gulf of Mexico, and they're starting to become consistent with a system off the East Coast. So very 2 areas to watch out for when it comes to where bill. So it's either going to be right here off the East Coast or somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, Bay of Campeche, or Western Caribbean. So really these big 2 areas. Either way, we're watching out for the Western Atlantic. So the main area we have down is the Western Atlantic for bill. So we have one area that we have to watch out for, but we have to kind of specify specifically within this large region where it's going to form. Let's not go ahead and look at the vorticity here on the GFS. So obviously, like I did say, nothing to watch out for anytime soon. But let's go ahead and look, like I did say, we were having GFS having some type of low pressure off in the northeastern Caribbean, but that does not seem like it's going to be anything there, really unfavorable conditions. But again, like I did say, there is going to be a little bit of vorticity with that June 12th low pressure that comes off the mid-Atlantic, so there is going to be a little bit of vorticities. Like I did say, it's not looking anything too crazy. However, 3 global models are showing it, so that's why I'm keeping an eye on it. However, like I did say, the best chance to have bill form is going to be the Western Atlantic, whether it's the Bay of Campeche or the Western Caribbean. So I really doubt that bill will come out of the mid-Atlantic, but if it were to happen, maybe subtropical, I wouldn't say I'll be shocked. But like I did say, it just does not seem like bill will form there. Obviously, we're already watching out for the Western Atlantic, but we still do have a little bit of vorticity there with that mid-Atlantic area. So just keep a very, very, I'm going to keep a close eye on it when it comes to the next future runs. Let's not go ahead and go all the way up into the June 16th time frame. There you see that vorticity up there into portions of the Gulf of Mexico. And that does seem like that vorticity is going to portions of the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. So like I did say, watching out for Gulf of Mexico or a portion there of Western Caribbean. Let's now go ahead and look at these. Let's go ahead and look at the Canadian model here. So let's go ahead and look at June 12th, see what they are showing. So they as well have a decent amount of vorticity within that low pressure across portions just north of Bermuda. So it does not look like it's going to be a tropical type vorticity signature. But as we get closer and models don't show it, I think it will become something to keep a close eye on. But I'm not really watching out for that region for bill to form. Obviously, I'm watching out for the Western Atlantic. So as we now go as early as June 14th there, you see that vorticity forming off the Bay of Campeche waters. And it's going to be sitting there for a good time frame as it goes to as low as 1,002 millibars by June 15th. And then obviously by June 16th, it becomes a 997 millibar system. And we have a whole ton of vorticity there across the Gulf of Mexico. So really watching out for that as well. Let's now go ahead and look at the waters right now and look at the waters in the future coming days. So right now the waters are quite warm. The Western Caribbean waters and Western Atlantic waters are very, very warm here, as well. These waters, the Bay of Campeche, are rapidly warming up there up to 28.5 degrees Celsius and 29 degrees Celsius, as well. Some really warm waters there across the Western Caribbean, which is why I'm watching out mainly for this main region right here. So like, there's still a chance for the Caribbean, but at this point, the Gulf of Mexico is becoming the main area to watch out. And these Gulf Stream waters bringing up to 26 to possibly 27 degrees Celsius off the mid-Atlantic coast. So there is some warm waters there for this weekend, but like I did say, it just does not seem too favorable. But waters as well in the MDR really warming up there, watching out for July there. But really warm waters right now in place for the Western Caribbean and Western portion of Gulf of Mexico. Alright guys, so let's now go ahead and now look at the future days here. So obviously the main time frame we're looking at is as early as really June 14th is exactly when we have that low pressure developing as a result, according to the GEFS, sorry, not GFS. But look at the waters on June 14th. A huge difference. I mean, look at the waters in the Gulf of Mexico and Western Caribbean. That's exactly that's a whole 8 days out. But look at the waters now. So, like I did say, for those who are saying, hey, these waters will be dramatically different in the next week or so, you're probably thinking, no way. Yes way. Look at the waters off areas like Tampa Bay. A huge difference there at the 29 degrees Celsius. Waters off Tampa Bay now are basically around 27, maybe 26 degrees Celsius. So we're seeing a huge warm up right now, and the SSTs across portions of the Western Atlantic here. And the main area we're watching out for is obviously the Gulf of Mexico and Western Caribbean. So we will be seeing a pretty large favorable time frame for systems to develop within this area. And the first area to watch out for will be Gulf of Mexico for Bill. I mean, so we can't rule out the possibility for a pretty big jump in activity here. Not big as in multiple storms, but I mean compared to the past few days, it's been pretty dead. But we can definitely see a surge of chances of storms here across much of the Western Atlantic waters. I mean, it's looking pretty favorable for at least the next, let's see, the next maybe possibly, I'd say around maybe 14 to 16 days. Is looking pretty good across the Western Atlantic. We're not going to be seeing that much shear. So the fact that SSTs are warming up this much dramatically, I mean, look at the Gulf of Mexico, for example. Obviously, the Gulf of Mexico is the main area to watch out for build development. And within the next 8 days, we have a huge surge of warm waters, and over 75, possibly more than 80% of the Gulf of Mexico is experiencing more than 28.5 degrees Celsius, and that's a dramatic increase compared to what we're seeing right now. And look at the main area, Bay of Campeche, seeing nearly almost 29.5 degrees Celsius. So if something were to form here, we're talking about a long path of these really warm waters. So this could definitely be something to keep a very close eye on for the Gulf Coast. Whether you're in Florida, Texas, Louisiana, I think I gotta definitely keep a close eye on the tropics here for the next week or so. And as well, we can't rule out the possibility. I think models are definitely underestimating this low pressure down here in the Western Caribbean. So I think as we get closer, we have to keep a close eye on whether it's the Caribbean or whether it's the Gulf of Mexico that will be the bill producer, or will it be a big race? I mean, that's definitely the question here, but I think it's definitely going to be the Gulf of Mexico for Bill. But what about the next storm? Could it be the Western Caribbean? That's exactly what we're watching out. And also, a pretty big concern is if we're seeing waters this warm this early in the season, what could the peak possibly look like? So I think we're going to be starting off in a slow start to the season, and then we'll be seeing a pretty active end in mid-season. So I think people are wondering, this season they're already a bust. You were predicting 16 to 24 storms. We only have one in 6th of June. I think, guys, we're going to be seeing a pretty slow start, but as the conditions are finally becoming favorable, we've seen a lot of limiting factors with the possible low pressures and all of that, a lot of limiting factors, but now we're seeing a huge jump in favorable conditions, a ton of moisture coming off South America, very warm waters awfully early in the season. It's just going to be looking really good. Look at the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream already bringing up to possibly 28.5 to 29 degrees Celsius off the east coast of Florida in early to mid-June. I mean, the Gulf Stream's already going off early this season here. So, I mean, it's definitely looking pretty good for an active season based on what we're seeing right now. Obviously, not really now, but definitely around maybe July, and then so forth. I think we are definitely looking at, though, for some concerning early signs of very favorable conditions. But let's go ahead and now look at the other forecast maps. Let's not go ahead and look at the ocean heat content since we just looked at the SSTs right now. So you're probably wondering, why are we concerned for the Gulf of Mexico when the ocean heat content is at its highest right now in the Western Caribbean? Well, like I just say, right now the warmest waters are in the Western Caribbean, nearly 30 degrees Celsius. Right now we only have max 29 degrees Celsius in the Gulf of Mexico. But like you saw, by June 14th, the warmest waters and more widespread warmest waters are actually going to be in the Gulf of Mexico. So the ocean heat content will be a lot warmer by the next 8 days. I know you're not expecting, you're probably saying, it's 8 days, how can we see such a dramatic change? Well, we're already starting to see these warm ocean heat content numbers going to the Gulf of Mexico. You see right there, starting to see those dark blues converting to light blues and maybe even some greens. That's going to be possibly, we're going to be seeing those colors all across the Bay of Campeche and central Gulf of Mexico by the next 8 days. So ocean heat content will be rising, warmer seas will be rising, conditions will be increasing, favoring a storm. So I think we're overall really watching out for some really good conditions for Bill. Let's now go ahead and look at the shear here. So let's go all the way up to June 14th here. So we will be seeing, this is according to the GFS. So GFS actually has Bill forming actually near the Yucatan Peninsula. So here there's not that much shear, but GEFS has it forming down here in the Bay of Campeche, and right off the coast we do have less than 20 knots of shear, but in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico we actually have over 50 knots of shear. So it's definitely not looking favorable for this storm to go right in the Gulf of Mexico immediately. But by June 15th, we still have either Bill here or over here. So either way, whether it's GFS or GEFS, both on June 15th, these storms will be in favorable conditions. I mean, the Bay of Campeche is still seeing less than 20 knots of shear, and if it's by June 15th already almost 1,000 millibars, it's definitely possibly going to be organized enough to keep a lot of that shear out. And same thing goes for what the GFS is showing there off the Yucatan Peninsula. And as we now go into June 16th here, that storm will obviously be going more into the central Gulf of Mexico. You see there is a big pocket of very little shear. So this could very well indicate that this storm is not going to go to Texas or Louisiana, but possibly going to go towards maybe Florida or the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. That's based on the shear path there. I mean, you can kind of see that it's maybe aiming straight for Florida, Alabama is going to be the really main area to watch out for whether it's a GFS or GEFS, because we have a ton of shear there in the northwest coast of the Gulf of Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana. So I doubt that storm will even go in that path, and if it does, it'll immediately die out. So I think the main area to watch out for is going to be the northeast Gulf, like I've been saying, whether it's the western coast of Florida or the coast of Alabama. And let's not go ahead and look at the moisture wave. Obviously, we're going to be seeing a ton of moisture, and within this time frame, a pretty significant moisture wave coming off South America there by June 10th. And by June 13th, we do have a pretty impressive amount of moisture coming off South America. It's going to be ending up into the Western Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. And by June 14th, look at that, a ton of moisture there in the Bay of Campeche. So overall, it's looking really good for Bay of Campeche and Gulf of Mexico. There will be some dry air behind in the Western Caribbean, which will be decreasing the chance of having Bill form in the Western Caribbean. But there's still a chance possibly watching out for maybe June 13th or June 14th early on near the Cuba and Yucatan Peninsula in the Western Caribbean. But really overall conditions are a lot more favorable. Look at that, way more favorable for the Gulf of Mexico. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video and see you guys later.